call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that the quorum of Board of Trustees is present at this meeting, that this meeting has been duly called, and the notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Opens Meeting Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We will now adjourn into executive session, and the time is 5:30. Hang up, sorry. It's not in here.
We're going to adjourn codes 551.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes. Pardon me. The board is now going to, The board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act, Section Government Code, Section 551.071, private consultation with board's attorney, and 551.074 to discuss personnel and to hear complaints against personnel. And the time is 5:31. Thank you. The board will now reconvene in open session, and the time is 6:16. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I would like to welcome you to this meeting this evening of the Northeast Independent School Board. This is a business meeting of the board held in public. We appreciate your attendance and request your respectful attention. We welcome your comments during matters from the floor section of the agenda. If you signed up to address a specific action agenda item, you will be called at that time. Finally, I would like to remind you that it is the mission of the Northeast to challenge and encourage each student to achieve and demonstrate academic excellence, technical skills, and responsible citizenship. Okay. The Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, item number 5, Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, Castle Hills Elementary, Principal Isham. Welcome. Yes.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. It is my pleasure to introduce two Castle Hills students and their families. Thank you so much for inviting us. These two students have been with me at Castle Hills since kindergarten. And I would like to introduce them now at this time. I'd like to start with the Smith family. Would the Smith family please stand at this time? The invocation will be led by Elliot Smith. Elliot is a 5th grader, and she is here with her parents, Michelle and Jason Smith. Michelle is a Northeast employee, and she has now joined the Castle Hills family as our educational diagnostician. Elliot has been our Battle of the Books captain and a champion. She is a current hyper accelerated math student. She's in our choir, and she's a safety patrol. Her favorite Castle Hills meal is spaghetti. And she is now going to read a poem to you as the invocation. Elliot.
My poem is called Don't Quit. When things go wrong as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, when you want to smile but have to sigh. When care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is strange with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns. And many a failure comes about when he might have won had he stuck it out. Don't give up, though the pace seems slow. You may succeed with another blow. Success is failure turned inside out. The silver tint of the clouds of doubt. And you never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems so far. So stick to the fight with your hardest hit. It's when things seem worst that you must not quit. For all the sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest of these are these. It might have been.
That is very appropriate for today. And now I would like for the Padilla family to stand. And Noah is joined by his family, Noah Padilla, and his family. Noah is quite the model fifth grade citizen at Castle Hills, and he recently attended the Marine Military Academy in Harlingen, Texas for a month this summer. And he's also served on our student lighthouse team. And his favorite meal at Castle Hills is the crispy beef tacos. His mother, Marina, has served on our PTA board, and his father, Michael, is here. And also his baby sister, Marilyn, is a fourth grader at Castle Hills. So Noah is going to lead us in the pledges. Noah.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now to the Texas flag. Ready? Begin. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. You may be seated.
We've got a certificate for you if you'll come up this way. And I just wanted to say thank you very much for coming out this evening and sharing your beautiful poem and leading us in the pledges. And we understand if you have homework, if you need to leave after this portion. Thank you again for coming out.
Do you want to hold your certificate up for me? There you go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Got it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for your service.
Okay, we are going to move matters of the floor for, yes, after the update.
Well, no, so if matters from the floor, I don't know what Tom is speaking
Mr.
to.
Cummins?
Yes.
Are you speaking to the
COVID-19.
agenda item regarding COVID update?
I was speaking to several items, so I'd like to just speak under citizens.
Yeah, so you can just do matters from the floor.
Okay.
The other folks, since they're speaking to the agenda item, they'll speak at the time the agenda item is up.
Okay, so we are going to begin item number 6, which is matters from the floor. For those that have signed up to speak regarding masks, you will speak when we get to that agenda item. So I'm not going to skip you. We just are going to have you speak at that agenda item. Okay. The trustees welcome comments from board members of the public during this time. Generally, board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting, although members may request further information or a future agenda item on a matter raised during public comment. As explained fully in the board's written procedures for this time, the matters of for portion is a limited public forum. Accordingly, speakers may present on a topic related to district business for up to 3 minutes, but not permitted to make: number 1, personal comments about an individual, staff, or board member that should be raised during the district's grievance policies; 2, a personnel action; 3, a student disciplinary action; 4, a complaint about a particular student; or 5, pending litigation. The trustees will now hear, one more time. Any person who persists in speaking on those topics after being directed not to do so will lose the remainder of their time to speak and may lose their privilege of addressing the board at a future meeting. We also welcome written comments at any time, either through email at board@neisd.net or by mail, care of the superintendent's office. 8961 Tesoro Drive, 6th floor, San Antonio, Texas, 78216. Sandy Huey? He said to go ahead and do Tom's.
Tom Cummins.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Micah. My name is Tom Cummins, and I'm representing Northeast AFT. There are several items we would like to speak on. First, we ask that employees be granted the 10 leave days for COVID-related reasons. If we want in-person education, and we all do, then the 10-day protection must be there. There's an urgent need to act to keep the well-being of employees a priority. Second, AFT requests that the district absorb any increases in the employees' health insurance. ESSER funds may be used for that purpose. Employee pay has not kept up with rising costs, so please help in this way. Third, we would like to report on our survey results on masking. Since we communicated to you last Thursday, our participation has gone up. Overwhelmingly, our members support masking, and one of the most important reasons is to keep children healthy. So thank you.
Allison Miller. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're going to Yes, she was, yep. Thanks, Allison. Item number 7, matters from executive session. A, personnel, including but not limited to administrative appointments pursuant to Government Code Section 551.074. 1, possible action regarding routine personnel, including but not limited to administrative appointments. Mr. Jimenez?
You just said. Item A.
Item A, I forget. 1A, Director of Army Instruction. 1B, Director of Employee Benefits. 1C, Assistant Principal of Nimitz Middle School. 1D, Assistant Principal of Garner Middle School. 1E, Assistant Principal of Roan Forest Elementary. Oh, yep, hang on a second. I have to do it separate. Okay. Yep. Okay, is there a motion to approve for Director of Army Instruction?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve Director of Employee Benefits?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve Assistant Principal of Nimitz Middle School?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve Assistant Principal of Garner Middle School?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byers. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve Assistant Principal of Roan Forest Elementary?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. The motion carries. Item number 8, board business. A, possible action regarding 2021 TASA TASB delegate and alternate. Presenter, Miss Sandy Huey.
Well, several of you have been delegates before, but just for a brief recap of what this is. The meeting in September is the yearly meeting for the Texas Association of School Boards, where we handle all the business for the year of the association. Every school district in the state is the member of this organization. At that meeting, we will be electing our officers and new members, which in our case will also include Ms. Williams. It consists of the business of the association, which includes legislative issues and other things. So the time commitment is on Saturday. We will have a working lunch where we are broken down by region, and along with the other 3 directors from our region, I'll be leading a kind of a training session on what we'll be doing. Then we go into the assembly, and we will be there for at least probably about 2 hours. Last year it went extremely long. If y'all recall, we had a lot of issues to discuss, and that could be a potential thing this year too. So it is a time commitment of at least noon on Saturday until. We do need 1 delegate and 1 alternate at any one time. Either the delegate or the alternate can be on the floor, but never both together. But the alternate, there is a space at the back of the room for the alternate to observe the meeting so that they can keep up on everything that's going on. So that's where we are.
Do we have any volunteers, or does anybody have any questions regarding the process? I think
I did have a question about, did our delegate and alternate, they participated last year?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
it was just virtual, correct?
Correct.
It was
Okay.
virtual, yeah.
That's what, all right.
So I was the delegate, and yes, the meeting was virtual. So I would.
If we could just have them, I couldn't remember if they did it last year, because we could just have them
They
this year
did.
again.
At this point, it's
Okay.
planned in person in Dallas.
Got it.
Ms. Williams, I believe you were the next TASB representative for next school year. She's our,
She'll be voted in on Thursday at the wish of the delegate assembly as the TASB representative from Northeast ISD.
okay, and so will you be attending that meeting, or would it be beneficial?
It would probably be beneficial. I mean, you would have to stand up and be recognized when you're voted on, and other than that, yeah. And I'll be the outgoing, so, and your day will actually be longer because then you will have something after the delegate assembly as the new TASB director.
Who else is going to be there? for
I
that?
believe Mr. Leos will be, Ms. Groen and
I was
Mr. Leos, myself are out, so Mr. Hilliard or Mr. Byer as
Okay.
far as alternates.
Okay. Are you attending?
At this point, I'm still to be
Okay.
determined. I'll know in about a week or
Okay.
two.
I can be the alternate
Yeah.
if we
All
want to
right,
do
that's
that.
great.
I guess I could remain as the delegate then.
If that's possible, then
That would be great.
I prefer to do that.
Okay, thank you. And if y'all have any questions about, we should be getting a lot of data, a lot of information on what will be held in delegate assembly this time. This includes all of our advocacy legislation resolutions and all of that that's been worked on for the last couple of years, so.
It's a
There'll be a
great
lot.
event.
It is.
I enjoyed it thoroughly. I really did enjoy being a
Very
delegate
interesting.
the year I
Yeah.
served. So do I have a motion to approve Terry Williams as the delegate and Mr. David Byer is the alternate to the 2021 TASB Delegate Assembly?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Okay. Item number 9, new business for possible board action. A, COVID-19 information update on possible adjustment to existing COVID-19 plan. At this time, we are going to hear matters from the floor regarding COVID. The COVID update, as explained fully in the board's written procedures for this time, this portion of the meeting is a limited public forum for comments related to tonight's discussion on the COVID-19 safety protocols and safety plan. We fully expect that everyone conduct themselves respectfully and with grace in making their comments before the board. Everyone who has signed up to speak will have the opportunity to do so. Please note that everyone always has the ability to write the board at board@neisd.net. And you will have 3 minutes each. Ms. Huey?
Okay, now Allison Miller, and I apologize for the confusion earlier.
My name is Allison Miller, and I'm one of the many parents that spoke in opposition to face mask mandates on Thursday evening. While I was disappointed in your decision, I was appalled by your complete disregard for what the parents presented to you. Many of the parents who spoke were concerned with parental rights and health consequences of wearing masks for extended periods of time. You never even mentioned these arguments in your deliberation before you voted. I went back and rewatched the video this weekend just to confirm. How can you claim to represent the district when you didn't even address our concerns? I think every board member sitting in front should publicly state what factors he or she used when deciding how they were going to vote. You are elected officials, and the voters in your district deserve to know where you specifically stand on this issue so we can decide whether or not we should vote you out when your term expires. The factors you used to make
No comments, please.
The factors you use to make your decision are also important because we need to know where the goalpost is and what measuring stick you're using. If you relied on scientific data, we should know what specific factors you are using so we can hold you accountable. If you relied on the emails and presentations that district members gave you, your 900 emails that you received before Thursday's meeting should be audited. I'd like to volunteer my skill set as a certified public accountant to do that for you for free. If you relied on your emotions and political views, we need to know that as well, because our children's freedom is now tied to your personal hysteria and whim. I would imagine that you would all say you're relying on science, and if that's the case, you need to have a comprehensive study on all the effects that masks have on children, including psychological impact, speech pathology, emotional and social development, hygienic issues, and mask efficacy. The presentation from the nurse the other evening did not cover any of these issues. It should also be mentioned that her presentation was one-sided and lacked citations, which is not scientific whatsoever. Given that these are real problems that children are facing because of masks, I want to know what the district is doing to combat these issues in our schools. If you are forcing our children to wear masks, you need to have a plan for these consequences. I'll end it with this old saying: a ship in port is safe, but that is not what ships are built for. Take these masks off our precious children and give them back their childhoods. Thank you.
Jack, please refrain. Please. We are adults. There are people here that have opposing views. I will not allow them to behave in a manner in which you're behaving. Just sit as an adult. We are all adults here.
They can clap when they have their speakers. That's fine. This is a public forum. This is a public forum.
We're not doing anything wrong but clapping.
We're not interrupting you.
Clapping is not against the Constitution. Doing it in public.
Okay, call the next name. Please refrain from making any statements when a person is speaking.
Jacqueline Klein.
Hello, I'm here to protest the illegal mask mandate. I support Texas House Bill 141, and I don't want to co-parent with a school district. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the virus has taken a total of 361 children under the age of 18, not a single one without an underlying comorbidity. That is a 0.008 mortality rate. If you put a helmet on your child every day to protect them from death by falling coconuts, you would be labeled a paranoid lunatic, and the odds of dying from COVID are the same. You want to mask my children because you are afraid. The only place that children are required to mask right now is the place that it is most important that they do not. Of the $42 billion in federal COVID funding allocated for research, not one thin dime has been spent on researching the detrimental effects of masking on children. That is because it doesn't fit the narrative of control. This is not based on science. The flu kills and infects far higher numbers of children year on year, and if you weren't having this conversation, then you are a hypocrite. You expect my 7-year-old to learn how to read without being able to see his teacher enunciate words, and you expect them to have healthy social development without being able to read facial cues. Do you see what my kids have been doing back here for 30 minutes? This is 30 minutes. Can you imagine the distraction that that mask poses in a classroom for 8 hours a day? We are not asking to prohibit anyone from having the right to wear a mask, only the right to decide what to do for our own children. We have already given you a year of their schooling, and masks have done nothing to stop the spread. There is a middle ground. Not everything has to be mandated. Not everything has to be banned. It is not reasonable to expect an arbitrary mandate that is in direct contravention to the one that the government issued that supersedes it. It is not up to this district or this board or anyone else to pick and choose what laws you want to obey. I could go on, but in the interest of exceeding my time, I'll conclude with this. We still have rights in this country to liberty, and last time I checked, if we give up a single one, we're going to lose them all.
I'm sorry, Parmenter, and I'm so sorry, I cannot read your last name. Okay, I'm so sorry. Thank you.
I didn't prepare any comments. I'm basically here to make a declaration. I never in my life thought I would be at a meeting like this because I figured people in positions of authority would have the know-how to make the right decisions. It is clear to me none of you do. I'm going to do everything I can to unseat every single one of you from this day forward. Just know that. That's all I need to say.
Sharon, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounced this, Dalal? Dalal?
Sorry, before I begin, I have a question because I didn't quite hear what you stated prior to. You said something about disciplinary action. We're not allowed to mention disciplinary actions. Is that correct?
If you are in the midst of a disciplinary action with the district, this is not the platform to discuss that action. If you have filed a grievance with the district, this is not the platform to discuss that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
no,
totally
you're
misunderstood that then.
That's okay. That's
No,
okay.
That's fine. Okay. I'm a member of NEISD community, and we have been for 15 plus years. By the way, I worked remotely via Zoom when I had COVID last year, and it didn't seem to affect my presence at work. So I don't know what the excuse is in regards to people having COVID and not working. We are your community, and we are done with your unproven, tyrannical, nonsensical mask mandates. A study of 600 children before and after being masked was conducted, and it showed that a third of those students showed a decreased IQ by 21%. My asthmatic son had COVID last summer and now possesses strong antibodies. He was placed in ISS today because he refused to wear a mask. Harris Middle School, by the way. He was placed there because of insubordination. He was segregated from the rest of his peers in a small room with 10 desks and 1 bathroom where he is only allowed to use the bathroom twice during that time. He is an A and B student and was on the basketball team last year. He volunteers for Meals on Wheels and other charities. He is a good student and civil human being. The local officials, the district, and the board have failed our children. You have a weak reasoning and zero scientific data to prove that masks are helpful in preventing COVID. All of you work for us. We elect you. We as parents are tired of being sick and tired. All of you will be held responsible, and I promise you, as the man before me, I will make it my mission to unseat all of you if this continues.
Thank you.
Kim McDonald?
Hi guys, I don't have anything prepared, just wanted to kind of talk about the same thing, the mask issue, and some issues that are going on my child's school campus. So I did want to say that my son had his first panic attack on Friday. He's 15 years old. Good student, normal boy, likes to get into a little bit of rough trouble sometimes, but has never had a panic attack ever in his life. The back and forth with the teachers, the telling them things that maybe I'm not teaching my child. I picked him up from school on Friday and brought him home. So obviously he didn't learn for the rest of the day. Today, second panic attack. Never had a panic attack in his life. He's walking through the hallway looking at other students who don't have their mask on properly. The second that his was below his nose, I received a phone call from the AP, taking time out away from watching the children, teaching the children, and to let me know that my son would be reprimanded. That is ridiculous to take students out of school. Now, let me tell you this. You want to worry about my kid wearing a mask on their face? As you can see how many times I've touched it, right? So if I did have COVID, I'm spreading it everywhere else, just so you know. That's frustrating. So anyways, I didn't pick him up today. He was able to breathe and calm down. Mind you, he's very embarrassed and doesn't want his peers to know what's going on. However, we have students that are sitting on the floor in the cafeteria because there's not enough room to eat. Not enough room to sit down and eat. So I think that maybe your brains need to go somewhere else and figure out why our kids are sitting on the floor because there's no room to eat. That is ridiculous. And that was confirmed to me by the assistant principal this morning when I called her to speak with her. Oh, we're ordering microwaves so parents can, or the kids can bring food from home. We're looking into ordering more chairs. Mind you, while you also have kids on campus who have had the same schedule for 2 weeks and are in the wrong class and cannot get their schedule switched until the 30th of this month at least. That is at least 2 weeks that they are out of an education because somebody didn't get it right. My daughter, the second day of school, was not enrolled in school. She sat in the library for 2 periods because somebody at this school cannot get it together. This is Madison High School, mind you. Okay? Not only that, there was a teacher on last week who asked every kid in their class who was vaccinated and who wasn't. I'll be damned if you're going to ask my kid something like that and make anybody in that classroom answer that. That is ridiculous. And then not only, and this is told to me by more than one student, not only that, he said, it does not matter what your household thinks, you should still get vaccinated and do the right thing. That is ridiculous because he has no idea what her medical issues are, why she's not getting vaccinated. Even then, it doesn't matter. It's none of their business. And he admitted it to me today. Called the principal this morning, spoke with the principal, who already has spoken to the teacher about that as a violation of HIPAA. You cannot call kids out and ask them that. That is ridiculous. He called me today and apologized and then tried to say, well, I thought your daughter didn't like me because of the tattoos on my arms. Obviously, that's not the reason. The first day of school, it was her favorite class. Now she doesn't even want to go. So I suggest that maybe you guys do something to let these teachers realize that they can't be doing that.
Jasmine Gonzalez.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Gonzalez. I first want to say that here in America, we live by facts and not feelings. Y'all should not have the right to choose whether or not we are allowed to breathe open air. I'm a little nervous, sorry, but as an athlete, I should not have to wear a mask on the or not have to wear a mask on the court, but then wear one when we're sitting next to each other after we've spit and sweat all over each other. It makes no sense to me. In class, we do not social distance. Lunch, you're sitting inches from each other. There is no point after a week to put these on after half the school was not wearing them. Me and other people that I know have struggled from mental problems because of these. I should not have to struggle, and I have to see my friends struggle because y'all want to take the right away from us as Americans. Men and women do not fight for this country for y'all to sit there and take our rights away. This is America. We live by facts. You do not get to take your feelings and take our rights away because you feel that you want to wear one. If it works so well, you can wear yours, and I should be able to not wear mine, and you should be protected. This is not fair. I should not have to see my peers struggle in school and break down, and I should not have to get a call from my mom because my brother is breaking down at school because y'all took his right away. I freaked out when I heard my brother had his first panic attack in school. It's embarrassing. It is not fair. I hope all of you, besides one that I know that agrees with me, look at me and every kid in here sitting here with their no mask mandates and change your mind. You, like I said, should be able to wear it if it works so well and protect yourself. I have a right to breathe air as an American. These have long effects in your life. I should not have to have asthma and be forced to put a mask on my face. And as we all know, in the NEISD, putting a mask on a child's face is already against the rules. It is in the book of rules. And the fact that you don't know your own rules is mind-blowing. Once again, this is America, and we live by facts, not your feelings. Give us our right back.
Dick Rasmussen?
Your rights are yours. They don't own your rights. Nobody owns them.
Where do I start? You can tell from the speakers before me, this is about freedom and liberty. This is more than about a mask. This is about our rights as citizens. And you can tell from this that this is all about medical segregation. Who's masked, who's not masked, who's vaccinated, who's not vaccinated. Where are you going next? Are you going to want a vaccine? I'm sure you will, because this liberal board has that bent. Let me speak to Executive Order GA 38. And I'm going to read from this specifically from the order. It says, to further ensure that no governmental entity can mandate masks, the following requirements shall continue to apply. No governmental entity, including a county, city, school district, and public health authority, and no governmental official may require any person to wear a face covering or to mandate that another person wear a face covering. You guys are violating GA 38. So this lady's child that was at school that was put in timeout or whatever for insurrection, do you all that voted for this, are we holding you in insurrection? Are we holding you in insubordination? You're darn right we are. You're darn right we are. And we're going to hold you accountable. And just like this gentleman said back here, and some of these other people, we're going to campaign against every single one of you except one. And I'll tell you who. Don't get rid of Mr. Hilliard. He's the one that voted against it. Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Let me quote a scripture, a couple of them. For God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. God is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. Maybe instead of praying to your unknown spirits when you do your invocations or praying to something ridiculous, maybe you spend some time seeking God to help us with this problem and trusting in God to know that He's going to keep us safe instead of a stupid mask. We know that masks are not effective. And your Nurse Kelly that came up here again, as people have talked about, was one-sided. That was the only thing she talked about. I also want to know, too, when Mr. Hilliard asked about if we had any hospitalizations, she said, I can't release that information. It's HIPAA laws. But she could give us every other statistic from every other elementary, middle school, or high school to tell us how many people were infected with COVID. Tell me how that works. Tell me. That's ridiculous. It shows me probably that we didn't have any hospitalizations or that somebody's hiding something because we want to see that this disease is not that deadly or difficult. All right? It's not a problem for children. As was stated in the meeting on Thursday, more children die of the regular flu than they die of COVID. It's ridiculous what you're trying to do and mandate to these kids to try to protect them against COVID. Let the parents choose. Let the parents choose.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rasmussen. Okay, Dr. Micah?
No, you need to read.
I did. It's under the first one. We're still on it.
Okay, thank you, Miss Winkley. So, on Thursday night, you had all asked to have this sort of as a standing agenda item. And so I'm going to bring you just a few updates since Thursday. So, Mr. Hilliard, we had talked about metrics. So what I did is I have asked health services and our medical advisory panel to identify metrics that we're going to utilize in which to help us phasing away the masks. So I don't have them today, but I do anticipate them coming here very shortly.
Will we be emailed as a board then
Yes,
and
sir.
sent to the community as well?
Correct. We will make sure that they are widely dispersed and well known. They will come to you all, they will go to the community, so forth, and then they will be out there for everyone to see.
Are we expecting this week, I would assume, the next couple of days?
I
or
don't know, because the Medical Advisory Council is not my employees. So they're medical doctors working in hospitals and such. So all I've done is I called her on Friday and asked her to start to begin that work. As soon as I have it, I'm going to let you all know. I asked her to get it sooner rather than later. Okay? As you saw on our webpage, we posted the cases from last week. In case you did not, we had 291 student cases last week in the district and 61 staff cases. I did something else. Throughout this pandemic, I have gone, so you may or may not recall this, but we have research analysts that are on staff in the district. So if you'll recall, back in the spring, we got different things off and on, different studies and things that people would bring. And I'd take it to them and ask them, can you take a look at this? Give me your thoughts on it. So I met with them today, and I'm going to read to you parts of what they had given me, just for your information. So they wrote to me throughout the course of the pandemic. Members of our community have shared articles and studies with us, and our research department has reviewed many of these submissions. So oftentimes as they come in to me anyway, I send them on and ask our research folks to take a look at them. And so while some of the research is valid and it's peer-reviewed, others contain some misunderstanding and misinformation, they wrote. So one is, for example, they said they've received one particular study over and over, as sometimes referred to as the Stanford Mask Study or the NIH National Institutes of Health Mask Study. And it claims that the evidence of mask effectiveness is limited and should therefore not be used. However, when you start looking into this study, you discover that there are a few issues with it. So one is the article was posted in a journal called Medical Hypothesis, which is self-described, and this is quote right off, as a journal for novel, radical new ideas and speculations in medicine. Some other articles from this journal include proposals that schizophrenia may be caused by wearing heeled shoes and that facial hair may prevent you from getting cancer. It is not considered a reputable journal, and after this particular study on masks received national attention, even this journal retracted this study from publication. Additionally, the author has no affiliation with Stanford or the NIH, but the author claimed he was currently employed by Stanford, which led to the misleading Stanford/NIH study names. Another one that we've encountered several times is America's Frontline Doctors, or AFLDS, which is a nonprofit organization founded by Simone Gold. Gold recorded many videos claiming to be a current worker in the Cedars-Sinai Emergency Department during the COVID-19 pandemic, downplaying the hospital's caseload and claiming they had flattened the curve. However, Simone Gold has only ever worked for Cedars-Sinai for less than 3 weeks in 2015 at an urgent care clinic. So they write, with the growth of internet access and the ability to globally share information has become increasingly difficult to sort fact from fiction. So what they asked me to do is, should any member of this board have something they wish us to investigate, to please forward it to me and I will pass it on to them to take a look, and then we will respond to it in an email to you all. Okay? That's all I have to share this evening.
Mr. Hilliard, did you have a question?
I just had a couple of questions. So I thought Nurse Kelly was going to be here this evening, possibly to give us some updates. Since I know she's working on metrics, I heard you say, Dr. Micah, in the medical health advisory, but I think in the critical updates, these are things, and obviously this would be a board discussion. These are just my thoughts since we get to decide as a board. But we do need to add students and staff also hospitalized. We need to have the full picture so we can make the best informed decisions. If we've had anybody, we all hope and pray it's zero, but it may not be. I don't know, but we owe that to the community because this is a very hot button issue. And we need to make sure that we should start from the beginning of this Castle Hill year. I don't know if that was asked last year, but at least since Castle Hills went into that, because we owe this community complete transparency and accountability. I think we say that all the time up here, and I think this board would agree with that, but we are a public trust institution. We've got nothing to hide. Let's put all the data out there. We need to also look at breaking out, like they did last week, elementary, middle, and high school, because we've already talked about that. I think we clearly need to do that because you said under 300 cases divided by 72 schools, so talking 4 or 5 per school. So my real question is, did we have any schools over 5 this last week, or 10? because that's where we have hot spots, I would offer. But this is the type of information, because we talked about targeted approach to minimize mass timeline, I believe, right? That was the conversation we had last week. But we had a lot of issues going on, so we need to be able to see that data clearly. Same with the teachers. We got, I'll say 8,400 staff, 840, 84, that's 1%. I think you said it was 70 something last week, is that correct?
No, it was.
Did I misunderstand? Did I miss the number on the staff?
61. It was
Okay.
77 the week prior.
So slightly below 1%, but still can affect staffing and manning. But I would offer, we need all of those datas so that we can be targeted and specific, which is what we talked about, and the goal of getting the mask removed as soon as we can at the appropriate age. Because our goal is to unite the community. Right now, it's very divided. I think everybody knows that. We got to find a way through. We haven't heard any disenrollment numbers today. I heard there were a fair amount of disenrollment. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's something I think we need to.
There were 42 students that withdrew and 741 enrolls.
Okay. And then did we have how many?
I'm sorry, Dr. Micah, could you repeat that? It got kind of talked over.
Sure. There were 42 withdrawals.
42 withdrawals?
42 students withdrew and 741 enrolls.
741 enrolled?
Correct.
Yes, so an increase in enrollment. Yeah, that's good. Those are the type, we need all of the
Please
data.
stop the comments. Mr. Chief, you're disrupting a meeting. It has to stop. It stops or I'm going to ask you to leave. We're being civil. We're being civil to you. We're asking you to please be civil. Let us conduct this business meeting.
Yeah.
Mr. Chief, would you please? I order. Sir, please. It is not an open forum for us. This is a business meeting of the Board of Trustees. It's not an open forum for question and answers. That happens in matters from the floor. Wally, would you please see the young lady that is in the middle of the, yes. No, sir. It's not an open session. It's not an open forum. It's not an open forum. You can email the board and we will answer your question.
I think everybody should, if you let me, Mrs. Winkley, we do need to conduct the board business. Obviously, there's a public comments. I know there's frustration, but we have to continue. Otherwise, other things could happen where they can ask the room to be clear, which I don't think anybody wants. We want to be respectful. We'll debate. We have different viewpoints up here, as y'all know, but this is the process. And I know it's not perfect. Sorry for stepping on your toes, Mrs. Winkley, but
you're not.
Is that a fair statement that I'm making?
It's a very fair statement. It's just unfortunate that it's not taken from a board member that is saying this is not our policy, and yet you're looking to someone because you have the same views. So really, how respectful are you being? So I'm asking you, no ma'am, this is the last time. We are trying to conduct a meeting. Please allow us to do that. Mr. Hilliard, if you'll continue, please.
Thanks. Appreciate that information for the different pieces of information that we need, because that is valid data that we need on both sides of how things are going. Another question is, did we have a significant number of students show up without masks this morning, or do we have those numbers yet? Because I know that I heard there were a few, but I don't know if there's a few, a lot, and many, or have we gotten any
Mr.
updates?
Jimenez, do you actually have the numbers? I know that you updated. Honestly, I'm extremely proud of our community because there was a very low problem.
Mr. Hilliard, I don't have the exact numbers. I can get them for you, but I would say that in maybe about 10 schools, we had 1 or 2 students at each of those. That's it. It wasn't many.
The last thing I'd like to add is possible, and I don't know if we can talk about a follow-up on that Madison issue. If there were some concerns there with the teacher asking about certain questions they shouldn't be asking, I think we need to probably get an update as a board. But those are my ideas on some detailed data so that we have the full data set as a board to make informed decisions going forward, and then allows the staff to target if there are hot spots, but looking at the aggregate set of data. And that's what I would like to offer for discussion.
So I just want to make clarification because I do like your point about having it, but you're saying per school, because if you do overall, it's not going to make
Yes,
any
ma'am.
difference when there's an outbreak
Right.
at Rome Forest and say there's not one in Hidden
Right.
at Hidden
Each
Forest.
Castle Hills might have it, but Windcrest
Right,
may not.
right.
You know, you pick.
Right.
And so if we're going to be targeted, I know it's a little bit of extra data work, but I think it's critical in meeting that clear, because then each community will know what's going on at their school. And I believe they have the data set anyways. I mean, it was already broken out by
Yes.
these middle and elementary, but it gives granular data across the district set that allows Dr. Mike and the staff to really go, okay, we have, and I'm not picking on Castle Hills, we just have more data from them, right?
Well,
But
and
it could be Reagan High School. It might be whatever it is, MacArthur, Kruger.
Having that provision that we did that allowed us to go in past that 6-week point to say, okay, we have additional outbreaks again, and it's on this one campus, and we know what we need to do to be able to mitigate that. So that kind of speaks to what you're saying, to the data that's provided, is it allows us to see where the problems are happening and take action so that we don't end up with the repeat as we're having, unfortunately, at Castle Hills at the moment.
Hopefully, but then, and we'll see week by week, we're seeing increases, decreases, hotspots, because there was reporting on CNBC today that the South has already hit its peak and we're starting to come down. Don't know if that's true or not. Former FDA chief, whatever. But I'm trying to keep up on all the different sites because we're getting lots of data. But so we just have that granular data. I think it would be great, Mrs. Winkley. Yes, that's exactly what I think. And then we can readdress every couple of weeks as we see what's going on with the data and our student population and our teachers for that matter and staff, because they have to be there to help teach and run the buses and food services. So thank you.
Mr. Leos, do you have anything? Mr. Byer?
Well, I was going to say that I think with Nurse Kelly's presentation last week, we already have a start to the breakdown
Right.
to high school, middle school, elementary school. And so I guess, Dr. Micah, if there's a way that we can extrapolate that a little bit more. I'm not 100% sure what the number of hospitalizations will necessarily tell us, other than somebody went to the hospital. I mean, if people are sick or infected,
Well,
then
severity of
we
issue,
have
if we're
that.
starting to get more hospitalizations, then there could be a severity, because there's, contagion and then there's severity of reaction. But that could also be another indication that we have a bigger problem.
Bigger
I don't know.
problem.
That's why I said I don't know.
That's true.
Just a piece of the data set.
And I guess after some of the comments, do want to, I know we've gotten several emails. For those of you that aren't aware, I mean, we all look at the 1,500 emails that we've gotten over the last week. I don't know if it's 1,500, don't quote me on that, but it is a significant amount of emails. And for those of you that don't think that we go through those and read those and look at those and figure out who's asking for what, we do. And so I want everybody to know in the community that we spend a significant amount of time. It's our job to do that in the position we're in. So we look at that information and we take all that into account. So, but with that, in addition to those emails, we're getting other information about crowding in cafeterias and sort of even into the air conditioning, HVAC systems, some of those kinds of things. And I know, Dr. Micah, we've talked about with some of the emergency funds that we could hopefully be getting, looking into. I know that's not an immediate solution, but do we know where some of those things stand, or do we have things on the books now that we're looking at as, again, a comprehensive mitigation strategy that includes masks and social distancing and sanitation and those things? I know air has come up quite a bit. Do we have any movement on that?
Yeah, so Dr. Mitchell, can you speak to the air? Because I know we put it in the plan, correct, Ms. Chancellor, where we're cycling the air out. We have an antimicrobial spray that we're putting on our filters. We're doing a lot of exchanges during the day. What you're talking about with federal dollar, I don't know if that's me or... I'm not sure what that is. There's feedback coming somewhere. As far as the federal dollars that you're talking about, we applied for ESSER 3. We were hopeful that we would have an answer by now, because they called us within 2 days of our submittal to ask some further questions. We've heard nothing to date since then. What we do know is that when it comes to any type of facility upgrades, such as HVAC, they have to approve those line item by line item. We cannot just say we want to do $15 million in HVAC upgrades. Right. They have to sign off on them. They will not allow us to do it on our own. So we even looked at trying to get started on some of that work. We just cannot until they approve, they being TEA. All right? So We did identify our construction, did identify HVAC issues that are oldest with certain, issues and things. So those are what we put in our plan. We're just waiting for that plan to be approved from the agency.
Okay.
And that was on the list of that ESSER, the approved ESSER funds. It was the HVAC.
And again, that's
Air
only one
quality.
component to this.
Right.
whole
It
thing.
was one of the 12 priority areas that the community identified as well to spend those ESSER dollars on.
And then related to some of the comments and the emails we've received about,
This one.
we have a lot of kids in school, and I know we're putting a lot of things on our teachers and administrators. And are we helping them in some of these overcrowding issues or things like cafeterias where we've got kids on top of each other, to alleviate that or give them alternatives on how we can try to let kids eat outside, however that might work at each school. I know it's going to be different per campus, but I feel like that has been, we've gotten a number of emails and comments about that over.
Mr. Byer, I can speak to one email that I believe was shared with Dr. Micah recently about that, and so we're looking into that, and that had more to do with the student that didn't have enough time to eat, and so we're looking into that situation. I did hear today from the high school that it was crowded. I hadn't heard about that, so something we're looking into. Our executive directors for school admin will look into those. They have been talking to their principals to see any other issues that have occurred. That hasn't come up, and maybe that may have been lower in the priority list for whatever reason. I don't know, but we'll check into that, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and Mr. Byer, what we said right off the get-go was to our principals is to utilize as much space as they have available on that campus during lunchtime. So whether that's outside, to use those courtyard areas to do those things. So again, we're asking them or helping them try to identify some places. Some of it comes down to there's no benches outside, there aren't any tables and things like that. So, specifically as we look at, for instance, when those emails come to me, what we try to do is identify the campus that they're speaking about and then look directly at that campus specifically and not try to paint this as everywhere.
With the seating, and maybe Dr. Oxley, you can help me remember. I think when the kids were at Bradley, that we did have that first, I think it was David's class, that large class, the 2018 class, all those millennial babies. You ended up bringing in picnic tables from somewhere, and they sat on the patio and ate. So it was outside, and I do believe it was something that you got maybe from the district. I don't recall seeing those. Do you remember where you got those? Maybe that's an option if we have old tables somewhere to bring those into our campuses?
Absolutely, Ms. Winkley. We utilized all the areas at Bradley Middle School, the front area, the courtyard outside. We used the actual courtyard back by the band hall, and we actually used the hallway going out of the cafeteria. And we brought in picnic tables, we brought in cafeteria tables. We just funneled all those tables out to those specific areas to actually separate the students out as much as possible. And that's what we're asking our high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools to do, is to look for outside areas other than that cafeteria space that we can provide to our kids so they can separate.
Thank you. Are there any further questions?
I did have just one on, and it kind of relates back to what you were talking about with being able to spread out and things. Last year, it wasn't as much of an issue because the actual children on campus wasn't as large with the availability of virtual learning. And I do know that, again, the state decided not to support that this year. So I understand that we're very limited on what we can do with virtual. It's a little puzzling. I wish certainly we can. They understand that our need for the ESSER dollars. So I wish that would hurry up and get here to kind of ease the way for everyone. Is there any chance, though? It's been asked many times by parents on both sides of the mask. No mask issue, health issues, and everything else about an increase in virtual learning. I know you've opened up the one area for medically fragile children. Is there any hope for possibly increasing that, maybe for children who will not wear masks to where they can have an access to strong virtual learning?
So I'll try to answer that question collectively. So as we open virtual for our immunocompromised kiddos, that was done in a what I would say a strategic manner. Without human capital, it is very difficult to serve kids appropriately. So the teachers that are moving to the virtual space is based on the decrease in enrollment in different places. So we're having to basically pull teachers from campuses in order to do the virtual just to service a small group of kiddos, because there's no staff that we can just pull in on top of the people that are in person. Last year when we did virtual, logistically, people made a choice, they went one way or the other. Even with that, we can no longer do a hybrid, which allows the teacher to do both in person and virtual at the same time. So even on our best effort, we have some strings that's tied to us that limit our action. And so even for our virtual that we're doing, we're basically robbing Peter to pay Paul, because we want to be good stewards of our community to the best of our ability and serve those kiddos that cannot have access to protect themselves.
Thank you, Mr. I'm trying to recall as many of the questions that we had from parents as I can. I know we brought quite a few of them up last Thursday, but I know there's been more since then. So, and I knew the virtual issue was a big one. I do wish Esser would hurry up and get here. That would help a lot.
Mrs. Here, you just made me think of one actually, because I know we talked about the medical exemption, but saw a lot of special ed IEP type individuals, speech therapy issues. I received one today actually that Dr. Mike and the staff are working on, but we moved quickly. There was a medical, but what about those other, whether it's religious, IEP, special ed 504s, and I don't know all the term. I mean, I don't know generals, but what can we do? Because we have obviously gone virtual for some people.
Sure.
But my real question is, do we need to, as a board, look at more exemptions, or what other exemptions are out there? Because right now, the only thing people know about is a medical exemption, but we're getting lots of concerns about immunocompromised and special ed. So I don't know what else we need to, as a board, make sure is part of the plan.
So the only other option is that we have homebound service, which a child who is out of school for 4 weeks may qualify for homebound service, in which they are serviced one-to-one with a teacher that is identified to support that kiddo. In fact, we have an agenda item here tonight because it is not approved yet that we can offer virtual homebound service. So again, we're navigating new rules, new expectations that also go back to old expectations. And so as we find out more information and how we can service more children, of course, we do the best we can. And so to answer your question, there is an opportunity for homebound service, the immunocompromised kiddos to have the virtual bridge that like I said, we're building this rocket while we're flying it. And so we are moving kiddos, moving teachers. And so if more information comes, then of course we have more conversations. And of course we would want your support as a board to carry it forward.
Mr. Jarrett, explain homebound though, because you are literally not leaving your home.
That is correct. That is essentially a teacher would typically, in a regular year, would come to the child's home to service them. That would be a one-on-one with the child and the teacher. Now, with the COVID virus being, it also limits the possibility that a staff member may not feel comfortable going into a home. So it forces us to try to see if we can create a virtual homebound service so kids can still get service, because we don't want kids missing their education because of their medical conditions. And so it is a one-on-one environment for homebound service. And again, you have to be medically fragile and cannot leave the home essentially to go to school.
Right. And as far as the speech pathologist, because that's the one that has come up several times, I know Mr. Jarrett and Ms. Oates have been working on that, and along with health services, to try to figure out some pieces in there where these masks can be removed for a period of time so that they can deliver some of those speech pieces. So they're working on that right now, and we hope to give you some news on that very shortly.
Do we have a number of quantity of waivers or exemptions that were filed between Friday and today so far?
No, I don't think we have the number, Mr. Byer. Look, health services is 4 people.
I get that.
I mean, I
but
need everybody to understand that, though, is
but
that
we've
it's 4
offered
folks.
it, and so I want to make sure
And
that,
so as far as the number, I mean, I think the 290, I mean, we just got the cases this afternoon.
Okay.
And so that's why they're working so hard to get that COVID team stood up to try to relieve.
Correct.
But even there, Thursday I gave you some folks didn't make it through the process for some variety of reasons. And so while we thought we had a certain number of folks, now we've lost 1 or 2.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Because they didn't make it through the HR process.
No, we're up to 3 people, I think. And as far as the waivers are concerned, I think they've made contact with everybody who's submitted paperwork. I just don't know the totals as far as what's been approved or hasn't been approved.
But we can get that,
if we can
Mr.
just get a
Villarreal,
number,
and send it to him,
yeah.
right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And also the breakdown, like I think the request was breakdown by elementary, middle, and high school. We have the totals by elementary, middle, and high. We just don't have them broken out. They have them broken out, and she'll be sending them to me.
Great. Okay. And piggyback, Mr. Byer, I guess my other question was,
Try.
obviously we made a decision at 11:30 on Thursday night. Not everybody can get in Friday to that are people communicating to district staff, i.e. the principals or their nurses on the campus saying, we're getting a waiver, but I can't get into my pediatrician or my primary care because
Yes.
we have a lot. Okay. Are y'all honoring that?
Yes,
as
sir.
long as they have an appointment set up? Just making sure. Because, I mean, it was.
Yeah, there's no deadline.
There's
but
no
I think,
deadline.
No, but I just didn't know if not a deadline, but if they're honoring the exemption up front or they're making them wear a mask until they get the actual paperwork done is my question.
Oh, got it.
That was the part because some people can't get in for a week or more and single parent household, et cetera.
And I think that was one of the questions that they've been working through, and I think they've been working with the campus nurse and campus administrators just to make sure that doesn't fall through, because they're getting requests through the nurses, right? And so the nurses have to work with the administrators to make sure that those individual students aren't being neglected or being removed. So it's a coordination of both.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mrs. Bickley. I'm done now, I think.
Ms. Williams.
Thank you. I've waited patiently. I have one request and some comments. Dr. Micah, I don't know, if we can do any more research than we've already done, but I've been hearing a lot of folks say that more people die I've been hearing more folks.
Would you please
say
leave, sir? Please
that
remove him
more
from the
people
board
die
meeting. Thank you.
from
Good
the
night.
flu.
Have a good night. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Williams.
Can he please be escorted out so I can continue? I've heard a lot of comments regarding more people die from the flu than every year than from COVID. If we could have someone do that research, I've done my own through CDC website as well as actually calling the CDC. But I think that would be helpful. I just want to let everyone know, unfortunately, the gentleman didn't let me finish, that we are not taking this lightly or emotionally. Everyone's not going to agree with everyone, but we've been looking at and digging deeply and into numbers. I just like to, let everyone know we're not without empathy. I recently came back from a vacation to Las Vegas. Had to wear a mask through all the airports. Had to wear a mask on the airline. Had to wear a mask in the hotel. That was more than 8 hours of mask wearing. So, I just wanted to comment, we're not taking this lightly or emotionally. We know that there are concerns on both sides. I don't think anyone here has ever been through a pandemic. I know I haven't. And things are just continuing to evolve. It's continuing to evolve. So that's the only request that I have is information on the flu. And those are the only comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. I just have one that was not covered by the many questions, these great questions and requests, is the water fountains. Is there a way to, I know that some of them, are they all open? We did get an email about a mom that was having, her daughter ran out of water, and the, I guess there were a lot of I love those athletic water fountains because you can just put your sport bottle under the, but Dr. Mitchell, is that your department? If you'll just please speak to that and what we can do about, we need to have some water.
Yeah, so in the process of getting more of the ones to fill the water bottles as we speak.
And so in the interim, what is the plan?
Let me double check with that and I'll get back to you on that.
Miss Winkley, a lot of the fountains that we have, we put paper cups at them last year, and we continue to have those. But not every fountain is open. So some of them are not, but what we tried to do is, and again, we used to have it where you couldn't bring in outside beverages and things. With last year, the way that it was, we opened that and said, please bring water, bring it in. It's not an issue. Some of our campuses, and again, it's, we can't do some of these things because we're waiting on ESSER dollars and things like that to start to happen. So these, again, are facility type upgrades and things like that. So what I would encourage anyone with that type of issue is to speak to that principal, speak to that teacher, because, so many times it just needs to be addressed at that campus level and it can be rectified or resolved. And then if it doesn't find a good solution, then to reach out to Mr. Jimenez and those folks. And we're going to work through to help that child resolve it, because there are ways to work around anything. Sometimes it starts at that campus level.
Okay. And then my very last, and I know I mentioned it last time, but I just don't want it to get lost. And I know you have a lot that you're working on, is just to come up with a plan so that we can help our staff and employees who are having to quarantine and take off because they're sick. And I know that you're looking to make that, if you present something and we pass it, to make it retroactive for those that have had to take the time off and it is going toward their personal time. I just didn't want it to get lost in the chaos.
Yeah. Ms. Winkley, Shiloh Witten, our executive director for HR, is working on that right now. And it would be retroactive. That's
Okay.
piece that they're working through as well.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay. Where are we? We are 9B, board policy. 1, possible action regarding FDA and FBG local, interdistrict, and intra-district transfers. First reading, presenter, Mr. Jimenez.
Vice President Winkley, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests, we present to you the first reading. And if you have any questions, Ms. Chrissy Wilbur, executive director for Pupil Personnel Services, and I can help answer anything.
Ms. Williams, did you have any questions? Mr. Hilliard?
I just had the one question about the stepchildren. Was there some particular reason why they chose to just change that language? I mean, y'all put it in the action item, but I'm just not, there must be a reason, I'm guessing.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, we ended up removing that because, again, as we try to reach out and look at how can we support all children, if you're a child by step marriage, you're still part of that family. And as an employee of the district, we wanted to give you the same opportunities, because while you may not primarily live there, you may still may be going to that household, which would give them the opportunity as an employee to bring them into our district.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it, Madam Vice President.
Ms. Huey? I did have one question regarding the tuition. When we have a district employee who lives outside the district, if they come in, do they pay tuition, and do we have to pay fees to the district that they are not attending?
Currently, we are not accepting district tuition for students who come, who reside out of the district. We are not collecting tuition on those families. We have not collected tuition on families from out of district over for the past 2 years.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that, because if they're an employee, I would think that would be a great perk to be able to have your child come to the same district that you're employed in. So that's good news.
Since we put into place the employees, which I believe happened about 4 years ago, when we switched to allow employees, be it part-time or full-time from out of the district, come to ours, we've never accepted tuition for those employees.
So is this update basically just catching up with how we've been practicing removing the tuition portion?
Correct.
Okay. Is that it? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the first reading of FDB local interdistrict and intra-district transfers as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I'm sorry, was that Mr. Byer?
Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Byer.
Sorry.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. C, Instruction and Campus Administration. 1, possible action regarding recommendations for 2021-22 administrative interns. Presenter, Rudy Jimenez.
Vice President Winkley, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests, I'd like to call Dr. Justin Oxley, Executive Director for School Administration, to the podium to address this agenda item.
Good evening, Vice President Winkley, Dr. Micah, members of the Board of Trustees, executive staff, and guests. On May 17th, 2021, we interviewed 13 individuals, and of those 13 individuals, we selected 10 to be in the 2021-2022 intern program. And we would like for you to look through those names that are set before you and approve those names. And I'm here for any further questions you might have.
Any questions? Do I have a motion to approve the Northeast Independent School District names listed above for the 2021-22 Administrative Intern Program?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. Do I have a second?
No,
Oh,
this is Mr. Byer.
thank you, Mr. Byer. I'm having a tough time
That's all right.
telling who's who. Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations to our newest interns. That's very exciting. Okay. Item 2, possible action regarding a request for TEA homebound instruction waiver. Presenter, Anthony Jarrett.
Vice President Winkley, Dr. Micah, members of the board, executive staff, and guests, I would like to ask Brenda Oates to come forward and address this agenda item.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Vice President, Dr. Micah, members of the board, executive staff, and guests. This evening, I'm here to request your permission to seek a waiver for students that are receiving homebound instruction through the district that are also identified as immunocompromised or at severe risk for infection of COVID. Currently, students who are confined to the home or the hospital bed for a period of 4 weeks or more in any school year may receive homebound instruction from the district, and that is available to students through special education as well as general education. However, the state does require that that instruction be face-to-face. We are receiving an increased number of requests from physicians for homebound instruction due to the students having a compromised immune system or being of that status with immunocompromised, as well as at high risk or extreme risk for infection due to COVID. We are required by the state to get your permission before submitting waivers for each individual student that would allow us to present that instruction to them through virtual means. And so that is our request this evening.
Are there any questions or discussion? Ms.
I
Huey?
I forgot I'd had an earlier question, and when it comes to the homebound, I can recall in the past that there were times where we didn't have enough teachers for homebound.
Yes, ma'am.
And knowing the critical shortages we're having now, plus as we heard, 61 already out. What's that status? And what are the, I'm sure they have all kinds of measures in place to keep these very ill or these immunocompromised students safe. So,
Yes, ma'am.
But the staffing issue was my concern.
Yes, ma'am. Currently, we have 4 teachers employed in the special education department, specifically for homebound services. And if we approve all of the requests that we have currently, we will be overflowing on those 4 staff members in special education. We are also looking to some of our potential staff that have applied for the virtual tutor positions that are special education certified teachers, because that is a requirement if the student has an IEP, and seeking to hopefully utilize some of those staff members as well as temporary instructors for homebound services. If a student receives homebound instruction through general education, that's typically covered through Section 504, and the campus provides us with those staff members to do that.
And the physician determines that a child should be homebound with the care from the district. The physician does?
The physician provides us with a statement that explains whether or not the student meets the criteria of being confined to the home or hospital bed for a period of 4 weeks. They also provide us with information about whether the child has limited alertness or stamina or ability to attend and participate in instruction. Our current concern for students who are immunocompromised and are hopefully receiving instruction virtually is that some of those students have seizure disorders as well. And so they're not able to participate online or to attend to that monitor for extended periods of time. So we communicate regularly with physicians' offices to get additional information and try to find ways that we can do 30 minutes at a time or whatever the physician will allow. Virtual homebound for those types of students does give us the ability to serve more students because our staff isn't traveling across the district. They can stay in one place and provide that instruction.
And I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking care of these medically fragile children. It's an incredible job that you're doing, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Quick question. Do the parents have to request the virtual option? Obviously, we're going for a waiver. Can they say, no, I want in person? Or how does that whole dynamic work?
So at the ARD committee meeting, the admission review and dismissal meeting, is where we would discuss that option for virtual or face-to-face services. The concern, though, is that a parent may request that we provide face-to-face services, but the indication from the physician is such that it's not safe for us to send staff into their homes. And in that case, we would try to collaborate with the parent to reach a consensus, but ultimately, our job is to ensure the safety, the health and safety of our staff and our students, and so we don't want to do anything to put the lives of the children at risk.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President. Vice President.
Any further discussion? Do I have a motion to approve as submitted the virtual homebound instruction waiver request?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Number 3, possible action regarding the Student Code of Conduct. Presenter Rudy Jimenez.
Vice President Winkley, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, or guests, I'd like to call Ms. Chrissy Wilbur up again to address this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Good evening again. Each year, we're required under Board Policy FO Local to come to you seeking approval for the district Student Code of Conduct. This year, we are seeking it once again for the 21-22 school year, which you have a copy of. I'd like to point out a couple of changes that we made to this year's handbook. The first being that the color scheme of everything is in line with what you're used to seeing with TASB, in which the red strike-through highlights are items being removed, the blue would be new, and anything green, double underlined or stricken through would be stuff that's moved from one area to the other. So that is consistent with what you're used to seeing. The biggest area that was changed in here is we just restructured it. We took what TASB's model student code of conduct had and put ours in line to make it easier to read based on where a behavior may or may not have occurred in categories 2 and 3 in that. So it was more of a reformatting, as you can see from a lot of the green. The information stayed the same. We just moved it. The other category within there, also within those two categories, new verbiage was added to be consistent with the updates from the last legislative, the 85th legislative changes regarding bullying that really were implemented. As you know, when the legislature approves stuff, it's a little bit of delay by the time it gets pushed through. And so last year with the new coding under TEA, we had to implement those changes within our student code of conduct for this school year. And so those are the two new changes that you see in those category 2, as well as a little bit throughout other areas. Other than that, there was only some minor changes in the sentences, like changing parents to parents guardians, or discipline alternative education program to a DAEP. Those were the minor changes otherwise that were throughout the program. Is there anything that I can assist with questions on the student code of conduct?
I have one question about the under discipline option. It talks about strategies are included but not limited to, and we struck through the modified method of virtual or distance learning instruction. And I understand that we don't have that now, but would it be prudent to leave that in? Or, because if we go, let's say virtual becomes an option going forward for some way, somehow, would we not want to just have ourselves covered instead of having to go back and forth, or do we just strike it and could move on?
And currently we took that out because as we look at a student code of conduct, we try to look at what's in place right now and what would last through the whole school year versus what might be a temporary. And so with us not knowing at this time, will virtual come back since Texas Education Agency has not approved it, it was not put in. Is it something that we can?
Well, and I guess if we have to approve it every year anyway, then we might, if we have to change it, we change it.
And we can always come back, if that's something we need to add and do an amendment, we can always come in and add an amendment and repost that amendment.
Okay. That's all. I mean, I don't mind taking it out. I just wasn't sure if it made sense to leave in or not. So, but if we have to look at it every year, then we just leave it as it is.
And again, if it's something that we find we need to amend, we can always come back to that.
Sorry, I have a similar question under the drug and alcohol because it said, or while participating in virtual distance learning. We're just doing, the homebound waiver is a little bit different, but it does make sense. So this is for the full school year based on the current laws in place, which is no expectation of virtual learning, not counting this a few minor exceptions.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I did have just one question. The CBC, the Campus Behavior Coordinator, I think I've asked this question before, but I just don't remember. Can you explain that role a little bit?
Sure. The Campus Behavior Coordinator is the person who oversees the disciplinary setting of the school. And so really their role, in when it first came out, it was designed for more of your smaller campuses where things may have happened without possibly the principal or the head of the campus or area knowing. So with the Campus Behavior Coordinator as the principal, they oversee that. But in our district, our size, we understand that the principal cannot be the only person. So they have their designee, which would be an assistant principal. So really it's anyone who would oversee any type of discipline management or behavior of a student, with the final decision being rendered by the campus principal. Let me clarify. With the final decision, should something be referred to a higher an alternative setting by the campus principal? Otherwise, behavior that occurs on the campus and handled on the campus may be seen by the campus behavior or the designee, which would be the assistant principal.
Okay, are we all good?
I had one.
Yes, go ahead, Sandy.
I know every year it seems like we have questions, comments, problems with people not being aware of the student code of conduct. And I'm not asking for extra work by any stretch of the imagination. This is more, I'm curious, is there any short version that people could use as an easy reference and say, please go to page whatever on the student code of conduct if you have a question about XYZ? It seems like this is a constant issue for our teachers, for our parents, for our students, that they're either an unawareness or confusion of, and as every year, as you just mentioned, one more law was added.
Sure.
And we never know what the legislature's going to share that we do. And so it's always so subject to change. It's an overwhelming document for a parent to sit
really
down.
is.
An index of some sort, at least with big categories, that
Yeah.
might be helpful somewhere in the front. It's a good idea.
And like I said, I'm not asking for extra work. It's really kind of a curiosity thing. Is there any easy reference for a parent who's trying to get an answer on this thing? I mean, we all read this thing, and you know how long.
It would be great if it were an app.
Yeah.
So how about that?
Yeah. And not that anything can be cut out of it. That's not what I'm saying. I know that legally,
Yes.
legally, these
We are required to have
requirements of the state.
specifics information within the student code
Or
of
word
conduct.
search PDF ability, so they can look up the word like, police involvement or in-school alternative or whatever the issue is. But it'd be a great idea to make it easier on the parents a little bit.
And Ms. Hugh, I think that's definitely something, and that's one of the reasons why Mrs. Wilbur was looking at how to organize some of the infractions that occur within the school, within 300 feet of the school at a extracurricular activity, because they were all over the place. And so this was a way to try to get it together, but there's always room for improvement, and we can certainly see ways to try to make it easier, but it is a little overwhelming, absolutely.
So
Don't disagree with that.
this year
Having said all that,
organization and
Not
next year.
right now. This is not anytime. We've got enough other things for y'all to take care of right now, so please. But yes, I noticed that, all that green stuff that you grouped together. That was great.
Trying to make it a little bit easier for people to at least see when a behavior occurs, where does it fall? Trying to condense it a little bit. Because again, as Mr. Jimenez said, the language was very intertwined, so we tried to make it a little bit more concise.
And parents still have to sign that they have read this document, correct?
They have to acknowledge, yes.
And it is online, yes.
It's on.
So I'm a parent. I just did it. It's all online. So you go in on Skyward and you just fill it out and you acknowledge. Now you can check in there, I want a hard copy, or you can say, I'm good with a virtual version.
I liked the hard copy.
Yeah, you just acknowledge that
I
you've
did.
received it, not so much that you've read it. Yeah, okay.
But I'm older.
Now, one of the things we do is we do extract this as a separate document on parents can go to. They don't actually have to go through the student parent handbook online. There is a separate document that just extracts only the student code of conduct, which I know in itself is still large, but at least it's pulling that piece out of the handbook that they don't have to go through the handbook. They can just pull the code of conduct out.
Okay, all right, thank you. I know it just seems in the past this has been a problem in some grievances when it's lack of knowledge or about an infraction. So just anything that can help the parents and the students sometime in the future.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the 2021-2022 school code of conduct as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. D, Business Services. 1, possible action regarding health and dental insurance premiums. Mr. Valerial.
Yes, Madam Vice President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Tonight we bring you the health and dental insurance premium rates for approval. We brought these to you and we discussed at a budget study session, and we're asking for approval. If there's any questions, I can answer.
I'm trying to get to the motion. Does anybody have any questions?
Are we still about the best deal in town?
Yes, ma'am, I think we do.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I think there's been some double-digit increases, so we've been trying to hold the line.
Yeah, thank you.
And these premiums are effective from January 1st of 2022 through December 31st of 2022.
Do I have a motion to approve the attached employee premiums and district contributions for the 2022 plan year?
So moved. Oh, sorry, Mrs. Williams. You got it.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Item D2, possible action regarding adoption of the 2021-2022 tax rates.
Yes, Madam Vice President, I call on Brian Moy, our Executive Director of Accounting and Finance, to discuss the following topics.
Okay, good evening. We are bringing to you the 2021-2022 tax levy. The rates are exactly as what we showed during the budget study sessions. The M&O rate is the total rate is actually going down about a penny, so the ordinance does have the information that this rate will raise more taxes in M&O than last year's. What it doesn't say is that all that new M&O money is being offset by reduced state aid because it's a dollar for dollar trade-off. So it's not a whole lot of new money for the district, just more on the tax side, less on the state funding side. On this item, the ordinance requires certain signatures, and so because Mrs. Groner was not able to be here tonight, I think we presented some language for the motion that will allow Mrs. Winkley to sign the ordinance.
Are there any questions?
Is this that one legal motion that must be verbatim to uphold the law on the tax rate?
That has kind of gone by the wayside.
Okay.
You can do it like it says here, recommend to approve the attached ordinance.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
All right. And then how much in total have we dropped the tax rate now in the last 5 or 6 years?
We have dropped the INS rate by more than 10 cents. The M&O rate first got dropped 3 pennies, and then we're probably another probably about 5 cents on the M&O side. Okay. So about 15 cents in total.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, just
Ms.
Mr. Moore, sorry, could you explain? I don't think the average person in the community understands the M&O versus INS. I know I had to learn it, but could you just tell them what the two different funds are, just so people understand where that tax dollar goes?
The maintenance and operations tax rate goes to the basic day-to-day operations of the district. The INS rate can only be used to pay down district debt voter-approved bonds. And so we look every year at how much is the debt service payments coming up. We come up with an estimated rate on that. We're going to have an adjustment to that in the future item, a couple down. But we try just to match that as well as we can.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Minkley. Appreciate it.
So we're proposing to adopt a tax rate that's less than what we proposed back in June.
It's the amount that we talked about at the budget study sessions, but it is less than what was in the public notice in the newspaper. With all the way that they've changed all the different calculations of rates and these things called like rate to maintain and NAVT, all these other, the general feeling is go in the newspaper with the highest rate you think it could possibly be, and then come in lower so that you don't have to republish and hold a second public hearing.
Good idea. Thank you.
Any further questions? Do I have a motion to adopt the attached ordinance levying the maintenance and operations and interest and sinking taxes for the 2021-2022 school year and to authorize Ms. Winkley to sign the ordinance as a presiding officer?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. D3, possible action regarding no new revenue and voter approval tax rates. Mr. Villarreal?
Yes, Madam Vice President, I've got Brian Moy at the podium.
Okay. Under the Texas Tax Code, you are required to approve these two, what I will call informational rates. The no new revenue rate is basically all of the properties that were on the roll last year and this year with no improvements to the properties, no new properties, what would the rate be that would have generated no new total tax revenue? That's just something the legislature thought would be interesting for taxpayers to know. And then the second is, if you go above this rate, you have triggered a tax ratification election. Obviously, the rate you just approved did not go over the voter-approved tax rate, so we are not triggering a tax ratification election. One thing that is slightly different for the first time under House Bill 3, the worksheets that make the calculations of those two need to be an appendix to our adopted budget. So that's why it has a little bit longer of a recommendation for the motion, because we have to append the budget as well as you accepting these calculated rates.
Is this published somewhere?
It
Or
will be published tomorrow morning after
Correct.
you approve it tonight.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that should have been the question. Will they be published?
They will,
somewhere?
yes.
Okay. Good question.
Do I have a motion to accept the tax rate computations for tax year 2021 for the Northeast Independent School District? Further, it is recommended the Board of Trustees append the 2021-2022 adopted budget with the calculation worksheets.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item D4, possible action regarding wait, I know this word. Possible action regarding defeasance. Did I say it right? Defeasance. Long E. Defeasance and calling for redemption of certain currently outstanding obligations. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, ma'am. Tonight, we just bring you this order asking for permission to be able to use the excess INS rate to pay off prior bonds. And Mr. Moy's up there in case there's some detailed questions.
I do have a question. Are there any bonds that we're paying early that we had not anticipated because of this?
No, we have two issues which are coming to mature 8/1 of 22. So we have two options for which to do this. And we plan on reducing the debt by much more than the amount listed in the order. But the amount listed in the order is the amount by which a 30-cent tax rate that you just approved was just barely eked over the minimum debt service payments for the year. So we actually were hoping to pay down, over 10 million of bonds come next August, but legally, we only have to come to you for approval for this 3 million, because in the way the calculations come out, that's the only part that can be called as opposed to paid down with a different method.
So we're prepaying more debt.
Yes, we'll prepay more debt next August by more than the 3 million listed.
So we're saving taxpayer money.
Yes, sir.
We're being good financial stewards. Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any questions? Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing the redemption of certain outstanding obligations of the district and to authorize Ms. Winkley to sign the resolution as the presiding officer?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. You're just going to hang out there, aren't you? Item D5, possible action regarding purchase of attendance credits.
Yes, ma'am. We're asking for approval to purchase attendance credits from TEA. I have Mr. Moy, in case there's any questions.
To clarify, this is that, I'm going to watch my wording of descriptors, unusual item that we have to do every year. We are not in recapture. We have a high property value per student, but we are not in recapture. We have to still go through some of the same legwork in terms of documents and approvals as districts that are in recapture. This is basically saying, If we were in recapture, this is how we'd pay back to EA, but we're not making a payment.
So if I understand you, this is required paperwork just to meet compliance with the law, but it's not something we're going to actually execute or expect to execute.
Absolutely, positively.
Thank you.
Any questions? Do I have a motion to approve the delegation of authority to the superintendent to obligate the district under Texas Education Code, Chapter 49, and include the above referenced language in the minutes of this meeting for provision to the TEA?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item E, consent. 1, business services. A, waiver of penalties and interest. B, certified appraisal roll. C, donations. D, bid items. E, over 50,000 purchases. 2, operations. A, indefinite delivery quality roof maintenance and roof-related work at various district facilities, contracted services, bid award approval, M&O program. B, professional services, contracts construction, contracts and related contract amendments supporting the 2015 bond program and M&O funded programs. 3, minutes from June and July 2021. 4, end of consent. Is there any board member wishing to pull an item from consent?
I'd like to pull item E, or I'm sorry, that is E, consent. 1E, over $50,000 purchases.
Madam Vice President, I pull E2A and E3.
E2A and E3. And Mr. Byer, would you please repeat that? Is it E?
1E.
1E.
Yeah.
Are there any other items? Is there a motion to approve consent agenda as presented with exception of item E1E, E2A, and 3?
So moved.
Thank
So
you,
moved.
Mr. Leos. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Mr. Byer,
Yes. And going
back to
through. go ahead.
E1E.
Yes, E1E. I think we talked about this a couple months ago, and I did not get a chance to compare this to the other sort of lengthy list of vendors and their potential expenditure or monetary values, but there's some pretty significant ones in here. Well, City Public Services one of like $14 million expenditure. There's anyway, I guess the question is, are these different than the ones that we've approved over the last couple of months? Or I
Yes.
guess 2 months ago, maybe?
I call on Valerie Retta, our Executive Director for Purchasing and E-Commerce.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Yes, to address your question about the over 50, we compiled a new list.
Okay.
Back in June, we brought you a list
Right.
of all the anticipated expenditures, and as we received our new budget year funds, we were going through the POs that were coming across and noticed that some of the POs were not approved for the correct amounts.
Okay.
So we went ahead and created a whole new list.
Got it.
Collaborated with the departments a little bit better to get better estimates.
Okay.
And then we also anticipated some ESSER funds in there.
And to clarify, because I think this question came up the last time we looked at this list, these are, we're not paying these people this amount of money.
Correct.
It is just the.
It's a what if.
Sort of the worst case scenario.
Correct.
We might have to pay them this, but chances are we're not going to. It's just a placeholder.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then that's also taking into consideration all types of funds that we have.
Sure. Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item. Okay, that's okay.
Oh, we'll do that.
Is there a motion to approve item EIE? E1E, pardon me.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item E2A. Mr. Hilliard.
Thank you, ma'am. It kind of tied a little bit back to the 1E, but I saw we had 4 roofing contracts. And in the spreadsheet here, I only saw 3 of them listed. I didn't see, we had 4. I think Kramer was not listed. I didn't know if that was just an oversight or an error, because the other 3 were each listed for $600,000 in the 1E1 consent, but I didn't see Cram Roofing listed. Are they supposed to be listed on this? I guess is my question.
Let me defer that to construction.
Thanks for being here. One question.
Yes, welcome.
Good evening, Madam Vice President, Dr. Micah, members of the board, executive staff. So CRAM is one of the new roofing contractors that we haven't previously worked with. So because of that, we did not take it to the board for the over 50 purchase. We will in the future.
Okay, so that's why they're not on the
That is correct.
vendor. Okay, that answers my question. I was just surprised, making sure I understood why that. And the other ones, they're all just purchased up to $600,000. Is that an aggregate number, or each company can get $600,000?
I'll defer to.
Just trying to make sure I understood that. I think it was a total
It's an
600.
aggregate.
Aggregate of all, okay,
Mhm.
that's all. Thank you very much, and Madam Vice President, that's the only questions I had on 2EA.
Mr. Hilliard, would you like to make a motion to move to EA?
Yes, I would like to move to have 2EA approved upon consent.
Can we clarify that's actually E2A?
Sorry, thank you, E2A, I said it wrong.
That's right. So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Yeah, he made the motion, you make the second.
Oh, I'm seconding then.
Okay, Mr. Byer. Thank you, Mr. Hilliard. Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Item E3, minutes from June and July 2021.
I just question, I didn't get them as an attachment or see them in the package or our large attachment, so did I miss that? And I may have missed an email. Did anyone see it? But it's not at the end, so I didn't have a chance to review them or look at them. That's the reason I pulled it, to make sure. Okay. And if not, I would.
I'm looking at Ms. Turner. The minutes, were they uploaded into their packet or were they not? They're emailed?
But I just didn't see the email. Maybe I missed. That's why I'm asking, because can anyone check and make sure I didn't miss it?
We've had a lot go to spam. I'm sure our filters have been really cranking up.
Ms. Turner, do you remember when you sent those?
I thought I remember seeing them.
See, I've
but
just, I wasn't sure, and I know we've seen a lot of emails, but I just want to make sure, if not, just move it to the next one possibly.
I thought it was on the. I thought there was where we get the large format attachments. I thought was on there.
Well, but look, it's simple to move them to the next board meeting.
Yeah.
That's easy. If some of you haven't seen them, or I know you've gotten a lot of emails lately, we'll just push that. Then it'll.
Yeah, I didn't see in the large either. That's why I was.
We'll just push it till
Okay.
September. We'll bring you the minutes then.
Are we allowed to publish draft minutes in the interim, or is that not something we really want to do?
We just take no action.
Okay.
Take no action, Mr. Byer, then you haven't approved anything, and then we'll bring them to you in September's board meeting for you to approve. Make sense?
Item 10, reports. Interim financial and management reports. Those reports have been provided for your review. B, fourth quarter investment report. These reports have been provided for your review. C, awarded bid report. These reports have been provided to you for your review. Item 11, discussion and possible action regarding board members' requests for items to be placed on a future agenda and/or request for the report from the administration. Does any board member have any requests at this time? Next item, 12, adjournment, and the time is 8:09. Thank you very much for coming.